Alright, so let me tell you about this job. It sounds kinda straightforward on paper. Maintenance at the old Northgate Mall. Place has been shut down for, 15 years now? Maybe longer. Most people forget it even exists, tucked away off the old highway, slowly getting eaten by weeds and weather. You'd think maintenance just means keeping the roof from caving in entirely or making sure squatters don't burn the place down. Yeah, that's part of it. But it's more complicated than that. My name's Mikey, by the way. Just Mikey. Been doing this gig for about 6 months now. Found the ad online. Totally vague, just said. Property caretaker needed, unique location, above average pay, discretion required. Sounded sketchy, sure, but the pay? Man, it was really above average. Like suspiciously good for what seemed like glorified groundskeeping on a derelict property. I figured, worst case, it's some eccentric millionaire wanting his crumbling monument kept tidy. I needed the cash, bad. So I applied. The interview wasn't even an interview, really. Just a phone call with a guy named Mr. Henderson. Old-sounding voice, kinda gravelly, no nonsense. Didn't ask about my skills much, mostly about whether I was comfortable working alone, whether I minded unusual hours, and if I could follow instructions to the letter, no questions asked. I said yes to everything because, again, the money. He hired me on the spot. Told me to meet him at the mall's service entrance the next Monday, 8 a.m. sharp. Pulling up that first day was something. Northgate wasn't just closed, it felt preserved in failure. Huge, sprawling building, 80s architecture gone sad and grimy. The big glass atrium was filthy, sunlight barely filtering through. Parking lot was cracked asphalt and ambitious weeds. It was quiet, like unnaturally quiet. No birds, no traffic noise, just this heavy silence. Henderson was waiting by a rusty service door, just like he said. Older guy, maybe late 60s, thinning gray hair, wearing a surprisingly clean work jumpsuit despite the surroundings. He didn't look eccentric, just tired. He gave me this look up and down, like he was sizing up a tool he wasn't sure would hold. "Mikey?" he grunted. I nodded. "Right. Henderson." He didn't offer a handshake. Just jammed a heavy key ring into my hand. "These get you everywhere you need to go. Don't lose them. Don't copy them. Don't lend them." He gave me the quickest tour imaginable. Mostly focused on the utility corridors, the breaker rooms, the main pump station for the sprinklers, which, weirdly, were still pressurized, and the tiny, windowless office that would be mine. It had a desk, a chair, a flickering fluorescent light, and a thick binder labeled Northgate Maintenance Protocols. "Your job," Henderson said, tapping the binder, "is simple. Keep the basic systems operational, minimal power, sprinklers, basic structural integrity checks. Prevent unauthorized access. And follow these protocols. Everything you need is in there. Read it. Memorize it. Especially Section 4, Incident Response and Reporting." He emphasized that last part. "You see something weird, you hear something weird, you feel something weird, you log it. Time, date, location, description. Then you call me. Doesn't matter what time it is. Don't investigate. Don't engage. Just log and report. Got it?" I nodded again, feeling a little weirded out. Yeah? Like what kind of weird?" Henderson just gave me that tired look again. "You'll know. Anything that seems out of place. Anything that shouldn't be happening in an empty building." He paused, then added, almost as an afterthought, "And stay out of the West Wing Anchor Store. The old department store, Pennington's. Structural instability. Condemned. Doors locked for a reason." He left shortly after that, leaving me alone in the echoing silence of the service corridors. The air was thick with the smell of dust, damp concrete, and something else, faintly metallic, like old pennies. So, I started reading the binder. And let me tell you, maintenance protocols was putting it mildly. It wasn't just about fixing leaky pipes or checking circuit breakers. Sure, that stuff was in there, detailed diagrams and schedules. But Section 4? It was different. Rule 4.1. All personnel must vacate the premises between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. unless explicitly authorized for emergency containment procedures. See Appendix C. Restricted. Unauthorized presence during these hours constitutes a Class 1 breach event. Rule 4.3. Report any anomalous auditory events, unexplained footsteps, voices, music, immediately via secure channel provided. Do not attempt to locate the source. Specific frequencies originating from the food court carousel require immediate reporting and activation of Procedure 7 Gamma. Rule 4.7. Visual distortions, shadow movements and peripheral vision, or apparent transposition of inanimate objects, especially mannequins, are to be logged. Maintain direct line of sight if encountering displaced mannequins until clear of the area. Do not engage verbally. Rule 4.12. Under no circumstances enter the former Pennington's department store, West Wing Anchor. Any signs of breach or activity within Pennington's require immediate evacuation and initiation of Protocol Red. It went on like that. Pages and pages. Rules about specific corridors, rules about flickering lights, rules about temperature drops, rules about avoiding reflective surfaces in certain areas after sunset. There was even a whole subsection on temporal echo phenomena, which basically said if you feel like you're reliving a moment, or see something that feels like it happened already, just leave the area and log it. Emergency containment procedures. Class 1 breach event. Procedure 7 Gamma. Protocol Red. What the hell kind of maintenance job was this? It sounded less like fixing a building and more like guarding something. Or maybe keeping something in. The first few weeks were mostly quiet though. Creepy, yeah? Being alone in a massive, decaying mall is inherently unnerving. The silence is huge, gets inside your head. Every little sound echoes like crazy. My own footsteps, the drip of water somewhere deep inside, the hum of the few lights Henderson kept running. I did my rounds, checked the breakers, walked the main concourses with my flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. The place was a time capsule. Stores still had faded posters in the windows, dusty sales signs dangling. The food court had plastic trays stacked by the dead registers. And the mannequins, man, the mannequins. They were everywhere, left behind in the abandoned clothing stores. Some were missing limbs, some were just torsos, others stood fully dressed in hideously outdated fashions, their blank plastic eyes staring into the darkness. Sometimes I'd swear one wasn't quite in the same position I left it. I'd walk down a corridor, check a store display, come back 10 minutes later, and a mannequin that was facing left would now be facing right. Or its head would be tilted slightly differently. Peripheral vision stuff, Henderson called it. Tricks of the light. Stress. Yeah, maybe. But it happened often enough that I started making detailed notes, just like the binder said. 1432 Sector B, Fashion Barn Storefront. Mannequin MB7, female, blonde wig, red dress, noted facing window. Previous pass at 1410, MB7 facing interior. Logged and reported. Henderson never commented on those specific reports, just a curt, noted, over the phone. The sounds started subtly. Footsteps. Always distant, always sounding like they were on the floor above or just around the corner. I'd freeze, listen, heart pounding. Silence. Nothing. Then maybe later, a soft scraping sound, like something heavy being dragged. Or music. Faint, tinny music, like an old ice cream truck jingle, seeming to come from the direction of the defunct food court carousel. That one always made the hair on my neck stand up. Rule 4.3. Procedure 7 Gamma. I never triggered it, because the music always faded before I could be sure it wasn't just my imagination or wind whistling through a broken vent. But I logged it. Every single time. The cold spots were weird too. You'd be walking along, normal stale mall air, then bam, hit a patch that was freezing cold. Like walking into a walk-in freezer for a few steps, then back to normal. Happened most often near the entrance to the old cinema complex. Logged and reported. Noted. It was the combination of the mundane and the bizarre that really got under my skin. One minute I'm replacing a burnout bulb in a service hallway, feeling like a regular handyman. The next, I'm logging the fact that all the mannequins in the abandoned kids' clothing store seem to have turned to face the hallway entrance, their little plastic hands reaching out. It messes with your head. You start to wonder if you're just overtired, stressed, letting the creepy atmosphere get to you. But the rules in that binder, they were too specific. Too weird. Henderson's curt acknowledgments, it all felt like they knew. They knew this place wasn't just empty. I learned the layout fast. The main concourse, a long T-shape. The big, dusty atrium at the intersection. The food court off one arm, the cinema complex off the other. Service corridors snaking behind everything like veins. And the anchor stores at the ends, a long-gone supermarket at the east end, boarded up tight. And Pennington's at the west end. Big, 3-story building looming at the mall's edge. Henderson wasn't kidding about the door being locked. Heavy steel service door, multiple padlocks, and a newer-looking electronic keypad lock. Warning signs plastered all over it. Danger condemned and no entry. But behind the grime on the main mall entrance to Pennington's, through the locked glass doors, I could sometimes see movement. Shadows shifting deep inside, where no light should reach. Or maybe it was just my eyes playing tricks in the dimness. Peripheral vision stuff. Right. 6 months in, and the initial creepiness hadn't faded. It had settled, become the norm. The silence wasn't empty anymore, it felt watchful. The shadows seemed deeper. The rules in the binder felt less like bureaucratic nonsense, and more like essential survival guidelines. I was getting paid well, yeah? But I was starting to think no amount of money was worth this constant, low-level dread. This feeling that I wasn't just maintaining a building. I was maintaining a cage. And I still hadn't figured out what was inside. I just knew I wasn't alone in here. Not by a long shot. The job description should have read, janitor, guard, bait. The incident with the service elevator was the first time things went from just creepy background noise to okay, this is actively trying to mess with me. It was maybe my 3rd month in. I was doing a systems check on the elevator that connected the main service basement to the upper-level utility rooms. It was old, clunky, smelled like oil and ozone. According to the binder, it needed a weekly operational test. So I called it down to the basement level. Took forever, rattling and groaning its way down. Doors wheezed open. Empty. Normal. I stepped inside, hit the button for the 2nd floor. The doors slid shut, the car lurched upwards, shaking like a tin can in an earthquake. Standard stuff for old equipment. Then the lights flickered. Off. On. Off again. Plunging me into total darkness, save for the faint emergency light above the control panel. The elevator shuddered to a halt between floors. Okay, annoying, but probably just a power surge or a sticky relay. I sighed, pulled out my radio to call Henderson. Standard procedure for equipment malfunction. Before I could key the mic, the lights buzzed back on. But something was wrong. The air felt thick, heavy, and cold. Like one of those random cold spots, but filling the entire elevator car. My breath plumed in front of me. Then I heard it. Breathing. Not mine. It was shallow, ragged, and sounded like it was right behind me. Every instinct screamed to turn around, but I was frozen. That rule from the binder flashed in my head, not about elevators, but about acknowledging things. Rule 4.9, disregard sudden, localized atmospheric shifts or unexplained biological sounds if no visual confirmation exists. Do not investigate source. Proceed calmly to nearest exit. Calmly? Right. My heart was trying to beat its way out of my chest. The breathing continued, a wet, hitching sound. I kept my eyes locked on the control panel, fumbling for the door open button. It wouldn't respond. Neither would any of the floor buttons. The emergency call button was dead too. The breathing hitch, turning into a low, wet chuckle. It sounded ancient, and wrong, and way too close. I could almost feel hot, foul air on the back of my neck. I squeezed my eyes shut. Don't acknowledge. Don't engage. Report later. If there was a later. Suddenly, the elevator lurched violently, throwing me against the control panel. It started moving again, but downwards. Fast. Way too fast. The emergency brake screamed, metal grinding on metal, but it didn't seem to slow us down much. Basement level was 1 floor below, but we were accelerating like we were dropping 10 stories. Panic finally broke through the ice. I hammered on the door open button, shouting. The breathing sound behind me turned into a high-pitched, wheezing giggle. Then, with a deafening crash, the elevator slammed to a stop. Not a smooth stop. A stop. Like hitting solid rock. I was thrown to the floor, the impact jarring my teeth. Silence. The giggling stopped. The breathing stopped. The only sound was the frantic pounding of my own heart and a faint, continuous electrical hum. The main lights were still on. I scrambled up, shaking, checking myself over. Bruised, terrified, but seemingly intact. I looked at the floor indicator. It was lit up. B basement. Where I'd gotten on. The doors hadn't opened. I pressed the door open button again, half expecting it to do nothing. This time, with a loud groan, the doors slid open. Standing right there, blocking the exit, was a wheelchair. An old, empty wheelchair. Rusted chrome, cracked vinyl seat. It hadn't been there when I got in the elevator just minutes before. It was positioned directly in the center of the doorway, facing me. I stared at it, my mind racing. Where did it come from? The basement storage areas were locked. And who? The breathing, the giggle. I looked past the wheelchair into the dimly lit basement corridor. Empty. Silent. Just the hum of the generators. Rule 4.7, apparent transposition of inanimate objects. Maintain direct line of sight. Do not engage verbally. Okay. Okay. I could do this. I took a deep breath, my eyes glued to the wheelchair. I slowly sidestepped, squeezing past it through the gap between the chair and the door frame. The metal felt cold as I brushed against it. Once I was out in the corridor, I backed away slowly, never taking my eyes off the elevator and the wheelchair silhouetted within it. Nothing happened. The chair just sat there, silent and empty. I kept backing up until I reached the stairwell door, fumbled it open, and practically fell inside, slamming it shut behind me. I took the stairs 2 at a time, didn't stop until I burst into my office on the ground floor, heart hammering, gasping for air. I locked the door, slumped into my chair shaking. Logged it all. Time, location, malfunction, sensory details, cold, breathing, giggle, anomalous object, wheelchair. Called Henderson. This time, his voice wasn't just curt. It was tight. Strained. Elevator 1? He asked sharply. Yeah. Basement to 2nd floor run. Got stuck. Lights out, weird cold sounds. I hesitated. Breathing. Laughing. Then it dropped like a stone back to be level. Object? Henderson's voice was quiet. Yeah. An old wheelchair. Appeared right in the doorway when the doors opened. Silence on the line for a long moment. Then, did you touch it? No. Brushed past it getting out, maybe. Did you acknowledge it? Speak to it? No. No way. Just got out and ran, basically. Another pause. Good. Elevator 1 is now offline. Indefinitely. Log it as critical failure. Don't go near it. Don't use it. Understood? Understood. And Mikey? Yeah? Be extra careful down there for the next few shifts. Baseline activity might be elevated. Elevated? What does that mean? Means keep your eyes open. Stick to the protocols. Especially Section 4. He hung up. Baseline activity elevated. What the hell did that mean? It meant the creepy background noise wasn't background anymore. It meant the mall, or whatever was in it, was stirring. And the wheelchair? Henderson's reaction confirmed it wasn't just a random piece of junk. It was part of it. After that, things definitely felt different. The air seemed heavier. The shadows clung tighter. The random noises weren't so random anymore. I started hearing whispers, faint and indistinct, always seeming to come from just behind me or from inside empty stores. I'd catch movement out of the corner of my eye more often, not just mannequins shifting slightly, but dark shapes flitting across the ends of corridors, gone when I turned my head. And that's when I met Sarah. Or, well, saw her. It was maybe 2 weeks after the elevator incident. I was doing my rounds near the old cinema complex, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The place smelled like stale popcorn and mildew. Posters from movies that came out 15 years ago hung in dusty frames. Suddenly, I heard it, a distinct sound. Soft crying. Female. Coming from inside Theater 3. My blood ran cold. Rule 4.3. Report anomalous auditory events. Do not attempt to locate the source. But this wasn't indistinct music or ghostly footsteps. This sounded like a real person, distressed. What if someone had gotten in? A squatter? A lost kid? The protocols warred with basic human decency. I hesitated, hand hovering over my radio. The crying continued, soft sobs echoing in the cavernous space. Screw the protocol. If someone was hurt, I couldn't just log it and walk away. Henderson could fire me later. Pushing open the heavy, padded door to Theater 3, my flashlight beam pierced the darkness. Rows upon rows of empty, ripped velvet seats stretched down towards the blank, dusty screen. The crying seemed louder in here, clearer. It was coming from the front row. My light found her. A young woman, maybe early 20s, sitting slumped in one of the front row seats, facing away from me, towards the screen. She had dark hair, wearing jeans and a hoodie. Her shoulders were shaking as she cried. "Hello?" I called out softly, keeping my voice calm. "Are you okay? How did you get in here?" She didn't respond, just kept crying. I started walking slowly down the aisle, my footsteps muffled by the filthy carpet. "Miss? The mall's closed. It's dangerous here. Are you hurt?" As I got closer, maybe halfway down the aisle, a weird feeling washed over me. A sense of static. Like the air itself was buzzing. The crying sound seemed to thin out, becoming less like real sobbing and more like a recording on a loop. Then she stopped crying. Abruptly. Silence. Her shoulders stopped shaking. She just sat there, perfectly still, facing the screen. "Miss?" I said again, my voice trembling slightly now. The static feeling intensified. Slowly, unnaturally slowly, she began to turn her head towards me. Not her whole body, just her head, swiveling around with a faint, dry clicking sound, like old plastic joints. My flashlight beam hit her face. There was no face. Where her eyes, nose, and mouth should have been, there was just smooth, blank, off-white plastic. Like an unfinished mannequin head. But the hair looked real. The clothes looked real. The crying had sounded real. My breath hitched. My hand flew to the radio on my belt. "Henderson." I stammered into it, my voice barely a whisper. "Theater 3. I found someone. Or something." The figure, Sarah, as I started calling her in my head, because giving it a name somehow made it feel slightly less terrifyingly other, finished turning its head. Its blank face was aimed directly at me. It didn't move. Didn't make a sound. "Describe." Henderson's voice crackled back, sharp with urgency. It looks like a woman, sitting in the front row. But her face, it's blank. Like a mannequin's. She was crying. Movements? Just turned its head. Slowly. Looking at me now. The static feeling was making my teeth ache. Mikey. Henderson's voice was low and deadly serious. Rule 4.7. Do not engage verbally. Maintain line of sight. Back away. Slowly. Now. My feet felt rooted to the spot. The blank face seemed to absorb the light from my flashlight. There was nothing there, but it felt like it was seeing me. Judging me. Mikey! Now! Henderson barked through the radio. That broke the spell. I started backing up, slowly, deliberately, never taking my eyes or my flashlight beam off the figure. It remained perfectly still, seated, blank face tracking my retreat. The static feeling lessened slightly with each step I took backwards up the aisle. I reached the door, fumbled behind me for the handle, pulled it open, and slipped out, pulling the heavy door shut. I stood there in the corridor, leaning against the wall, chest heaving. Status? Henderson demanded. Out. Corridor outside Theater 3. Doors shut. Did it follow? No. Just watched. Good. Avoid the cinema complex for the remainder of your shift. Log it. Classification: Mimic Entity Encounter. Reference Protocol 6 Alpha. Mimic Entity. Protocol 6 Alpha. More terms I didn't understand, referencing procedures I didn't have access to. I didn't see Sarah again for a while after that, but the encounter changed things. It proved Henderson wasn't just paranoid, and the binder wasn't just bureaucratic overkill. There were things in the mall. Things that weren't human. Things that watched, and maybe waited. And sometimes, they pretended to be human. The thought sent a fresh wave of chills down my spine. Why pretend? What did they want? The job suddenly felt a lot less like maintenance, and a lot more like being locked inside a cage with something that was very good at camouflage. The weeks following the Sarah encounter were thick with tension. Every shadow seemed deeper, every echo sounded more deliberate. I stuck to the protocols like my life depended on them, which, I was rapidly concluding, it probably did. No investigating noises, maintain line of sight on weirdness, log everything, call Henderson. Avoid the cinema complex. Avoid the West Wing. Avoid reflections after dark in Sector C. It was like navigating a minefield blindfolded, armed only with a list of things not to step on. Henderson remained cryptic. My reports of phantom footsteps, cold spots, and flickering lights got the usual. Noted. But after the mimic entity report, his tone changed slightly. He started asking more specific follow-up questions. What was the ambient temperature near the source? Did you notice any olfactory phenomena? Yeah, Henderson, it smelled like dread and bad plumbing, thanks for asking. Any fluctuations in the EM field readings? I had a basic EMF meter as part of my kit, supposedly for checking wiring, but now I suspected its true purpose. Sometimes, near the weird spots, it would buzz erratic. I started paying more attention to the building itself. The decay wasn't uniform. Some areas felt almost normal, just dusty and neglected. Others felt wrong, oppressive. Like the air was heavy and stale not just with age, but with something else. The area around the boarded-up entrance to Pennington's, the forbidden West Wing anchor store, was the worst. Even 50 feet away, the air felt colder, denser. The EMF meter always went nuts near there. And sometimes, late at night, when the building was utterly silent, I'd hear sounds from that direction. Faint, deep thuds. Like something heavy hitting concrete, far away inside the sealed-off store. I logged it, of course. Henderson's response was always the same. Stay clear of the West Wing perimeter. Report any escalation. Escalation. Another one of those words that made my stomach clench. It was during one of these tense late shifts, maybe a month after seeing Sarah, that I met Dave. I was in the main security office near the east entrance, not my usual windowless hole, but the mall's original security hub. It was slightly bigger, had a wall of dead monitors, and offered a slightly better vantage point over the main concourse through reinforced glass. Henderson had told me to use it occasionally, for observational variance. I was reviewing the logs, nursing a lukewarm coffee, when the service door behind the security desk creaked open. I practically jumped out of my skin, spinning around, flashlight up. Standing there was a guy I hadn't seen before. He was older than me, maybe late 40s, early 50s. Big guy, built like a brick house that had seen better days. He wore a faded, nondescript security uniform, dark blue shirt, pants, heavy boots, but no company logo I recognized. He had a weary face, deep-set eyes under bushy gray eyebrows, and a salt and pepper beard that looked like it hadn't been trimmed in weeks. He held up his hands, palms out. "Easy there, son," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Didn't mean to spook ya. Name's Dave. Henderson sent me." Henderson? He hadn't mentioned anyone else working here. "He didn't tell me anyone else was scheduled tonight," I said, keeping my flashlight partially raised, my other hand near my radio. Dave chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Henderson don't tell nobody nothing they don't strictly need to know. Part of his charm. Said you might appreciate a second pair of eyes tonight. Said things been active." He looked around the dusty security office, then out at the dark concourse. "Place gives me the creeps more than usual lately." I lowered the flashlight slowly. He seemed legit, or at least, he knew Henderson's name and style. "Mikey," I offered. "Figured," Dave said, nodding. He pulled up a spare chair, groaning slightly as he sat. "Been doing this detail, on and off, longer than you been alive, probably. Mostly Henderson calls me in when he thinks things are getting spicy." "Spicy?" "Yeah. You know." He waved a hand vaguely. "Noises get louder. Shadows get bolder. The tenants get restless." Tenants. That was a new one. "You mean the weird stuff? Like the mannequins moving? Or the crying girl?" Dave's eyes sharpened. "You seen her? Blank face?" I nodded mutely. He grunted. "Yeah. She's one of them. Likes the theater. Likes attention. Best to ignore her, like Henderson says. Feeding them attention just makes them stronger, you know?" This was the most direct conversation I'd had about the mall's actual situation. Henderson just gave orders and protocols. Dave sounded like he knew things. "So what are they?" I asked, leaning forward. "What is this place?" Dave sighed, rubbing his temples. "Look, kid. Henderson's got his rules for a reason. Knowing too much ain't always healthy round here. It's complicated. This mall wasn't just built on land. It was built on something else. Something thin. A weak spot." "A weak spot?" "Yeah. Between here and somewhere else. Things leak through. Things get trapped. Things that used to be people, maybe. Things that never were. The mall itself, it remembers things. Holds echoes. And sometimes those echoes bite back." He tapped the thick binder of protocols sitting on the desk. "These rules ain't suggestions, Mikey. They're load-bearing walls. You start knocking them down, the whole damn roof caves in. Metaphorically speaking. Mostly." He told me bits and pieces over the next couple of hours, between long stretches of silence, just watching the monitors. Most were dead, but a few cameras Henderson had installed still worked, showing grainy, black and white views of key areas. He told me about a previous caretaker who got obsessed with the music from the carousel, convinced it was a code. They found him curled up inside one of the plastic horses, humming the tune, unresponsive. He told me about strange symbols appearing on walls, symbols that made your eyes water and your head ache if you looked too long. He confirmed the sounds from Pennington's weren't my imagination. "That place," Dave said, his voice dropping low, gesturing vaguely towards the West Wing. "That's ground zero. Whatever's going on here, the heart of it's in there. Something went real wrong when they were building it, or maybe something was already there and they disturbed it." Henderson keeps it locked down tight for a reason. Protocol Red ain't a fire drill, kid. It's a run like hell and don't look back situation. But what is it? I pressed. What's inside? Dave shook his head, looking genuinely uneasy. Nobody knows for sure. Not even Henderson, I reckon. Not entirely. Seen reports. Heard things. Talk of shifting architecture. Rooms that aren't on the blueprints. Things you see from the corner of your eye that vanish when you look straight on. And the cold, an unnatural, deep cold. Whatever's in there, it's big, it's old, and it doesn't like being disturbed. He shuddered. Place is a containment zone, Mikey. We're not janitors. We're the guys checking the locks on the monster's cage. That confirmed my own creeping suspicions. This wasn't about property value. It was about containment. Henderson wasn't just a manager. He was part of something bigger, something organized, that knew about these weak spots and the things that came through them. The protocols weren't just safety guidelines. They were containment procedures. Dave stayed until about 4 a.m. We didn't see anything major, just the usual flickers and whispers on the edge of perception. But talking to him, hearing his weary confirmation of the mall's true nature, solidified the fear in a way Henderson's cryptic warnings never had. This wasn't just a spooky job, it was dangerous. Actively, potentially lethally dangerous. As Dave was leaving, he paused at the door. One more thing, Mikey, he said, turning back. Watch yourself. This place, it learns. It watches you back. Figures out what scares you. Don't let it get in your head. He gave me a grim look. And stay the hell away from Pennington's. Seriously. Some doors are meant to stay closed. He left, melting back into the pre-dawn gloom. I was alone again, but the silence felt different now. Less empty, more pregnant. Waiting. Dave's words echoed in my mind. It learns. Figures out what scares you. The next week was quiet. Almost too quiet. The usual minor occurrences, shifting mannequins, faint noises, seemed to dwindle. The EMF meter stayed relatively stable. It felt wrong. Like the calm before a storm. Henderson called once, asking for a status update. I reported the unusual quiet. Maintain vigilance, was all he said. Stick to protocols. Report any deviation immediately. Deviation. That came 3 nights later. I was doing a perimeter check on the west wing, keeping my distance from the Pennington's entrance as instructed, maybe 100 feet away down the main concourse. The air, as always, was colder here. My flashlight beam played over the dusty, locked glass doors of the department store entrance. Usually, behind the grime, it was just impenetrable darkness. Tonight it wasn't. Deep inside, maybe 50 yards back from the doors, there was a light. A faint, flickering orange-yellow light. Like candlelight. Or maybe an old gas lamp. It illuminated just enough for me to see shapes moving. Not clearly, just silhouettes shifting behind racks of unseen merchandise, gliding between display cases shrouded in shadow. More than one. They moved slowly, deliberately. My heart hammered against my ribs. Rule 4.12. Any signs of breach or activity within Pennington's require immediate evacuation and initiation of Protocol Red. This was activity. Unexplained light movement. This was it. I reached for my radio, hand shaking. Henderson, I whispered urgently. West Wing. Pennington's entrance. There's a light inside. Movement. Multiple figures. The radio crackled. Confirm visual, Mikey. Light source? Nature of movement? Henderson's voice was tight, devoid of its usual weariness, replaced by sharp focus. Flickering light. Orange-yellow. Deep inside. Silhouettes, slow movement. Can't make out details. My eyes were glued to the distant light, trying to pierce the gloom. One of the silhouettes detached itself from the others. It started moving towards the entrance. Towards me. still just a shadow against the flickering light, but it was getting closer, growing larger. It moved with an unnatural smoothness, gliding rather than walking. "Henderson, something's coming towards the doors." Panic was rising fast. "Describe the figure," Henderson snapped. "Tall. Thin. Can't make out features. Just gliding." It was maybe 30 yards from the glass doors now. The light behind it seemed to pulse in time with its movement. Then it stopped. Right behind the glass doors. A tall, spindly silhouette, perfectly still, facing me through the grimy barrier. The flickering light behind it cast its shadow long and distorted across the dusty floor. I couldn't see a face, couldn't see details, just the outline. But I could feel it. Feel it looking at me. An intense pressure built in my head, like my skull was shrinking. "Henderson," I choked out. "It's at the doors. Just standing there. Staring." "Protocol red." Henderson's voice was cold, absolute. "Evacuate. Now, Mikey. East Service entrance. Do not delay. Do not look back. Move. Evacuate. Protocol red." Dave's warning flashed in my mind. "Run like hell." I turned, heart pounding like a drum solo, and sprinted. Away from the West Wing, away from the silent, watching silhouette behind the glass. Down the echoing concourse, my footsteps frantic in the oppressive silence. The East Service entrance felt miles away. Every shadow seemed to leap out at me. Every distant creak sounded like pursuit. I didn't look back. Not once. I burst through the East Service door into the cool night air, slamming it shut behind me, fumbling with the locks Henderson had insisted I learn. Safe? No. Not safe. Just outside. My radio crackled again. "Mikey, status?" "Outside," I gasped, leaning against the cold brick wall, trying to catch my breath. "East entrance secured." "Good. Stay put." "Asset inbound." "Asset inbound?" What the hell did that mean? Before I could ask, I heard it. A low hum, growing rapidly louder. Not a car. Not a truck. A helicopter. Coming in fast and low. No lights. A dark shape against the slightly less dark sky, descending towards the mall's roof somewhere above the East Wing. Asset inbound. Henderson didn't work for some eccentric millionaire. Dave wasn't just a random security contractor. The protocols, the containment, protocol red, this was organized. Serious. And whatever was inside Pennington's had just triggered a major response. The quiet period was over. The storm had arrived. And I was standing right in its path. The helicopter sound faded as quickly as it arrived, suggesting it had landed on the roof or nearby. Silence fell again, heavier than before. I stood by the service door, shivering slightly, adrenaline still pumping. What now? What was the asset? Were they going in? My radio remained silent. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The only sounds were the crickets and the distant highway hum, sounds I hadn't even noticed inside the mall's oppressive bubble. The contrast was jarring. Normal world out here, nightmare world just behind that steel door. Then, my radio crackled again. Not Henderson's voice this time. Female. Crisp, professional, utterly calm. "Mr. Davies? Michael Davies?" My name. My full name. Henderson only ever called me Mikey. Yeah? That's me. This is Agent Sterling," the voice said. "Remain at your current position. Await extraction. Do not re-enter the facility under any circumstances. Acknowledged?" Agent Sterling. The asset, presumably. An agent? Extraction? What was going on? Acknowledged, I managed to say. "What about Henderson? Is he okay?" A slight pause. "Mr. Henderson is occupied. Your adherence to Protocol Red was timely, Mr. Davies. You are clear of the immediate containment breach." Containment breach. The words hung in the air. So it wasn't just activity. Whatever was in Pennington's was out. Or trying to get out. The light, The figure at the door. It was testing the boundaries. Maybe breaking them. Before I could process that horrifying thought, the service door beside me buzzed loudly, the electronic lock disengaging. It swung inward slightly. "Mr. Davies?" Agent Sterling's voice came again, calm but firm. "Extraction team is at your location. Proceed through the door." "Wait, what?" "She just told me not to re-enter." "You said stay put. You said don't go back inside." "Change of plans, Mr. Davies. The primary exfiltration route is compromised. Secondary route is through the East Wing service corridor. We have established a secure path. Move quickly and follow instructions precisely." Compromised? Secure path? My gut screamed trap. Everything I'd learned, every instinct honed over the past months, told me going back inside, especially now, was suicidal. But what choice did I have? Stay out here and wait for, what? Whatever breached containment to come find me? Hesitantly, heart pounding, I pushed the door open wider and peered inside. The familiar, grimy service corridor stretched ahead, dimly lit by emergency lights. Empty. Silent. "Proceed 50 meters down the corridor," Sterling instructed via the radio. "Take the first left turn. You will encounter marked guidance. Do not deviate. 50 meters. First left. Marked guidance." Sounded simple. Felt like walking into a monster's mouth. I took a deep breath and stepped back inside the Northgate Mall. The door clicked shut behind me. The air was different. Charged. Like before a lightning strike. The silence felt thin, stretched taut, ready to snap. I started walking, my boots crunching softly on unseen debris. 50 meters. Counting my paces. The corridor seemed longer than usual. Was it the fear? Or was Dave right about the shifting architecture? I reached the first left turn, a smaller utility tunnel branching off. As Sterling promised, there was guidance. Not a sign, but a single, green chemlight stick hanging from a pipe, casting an eerie glow. Okay. Follow the breadcrumbs. I turned into the narrower tunnel. It smelled strongly of ozone and damp earth. Continue following guidance markers, Sterling's voice instructed. Report any anomalies immediately. I moved deeper into the maze of service tunnels, following the spaced-out green glow sticks. It felt like descending into the bowels of the earth, not just crossing a wing of a mall. The silence was absolute now. No distant thuds, no whispers, nothing. Just this seems to be coming from ahead, where the next marker should be. Maintain course, Mr. Davies. Do not stop. Do not acknowledge the music. Proceed directly to the next marker. Don't acknowledge. Another rule. Like the crying girl, like the shifted mannequins. Walk past the creepy piano music like it's not there. Easy for her to say. The music got louder as I approached the bend, echoing strangely in the confined space. It was haunting, unsettlingly familiar, like a half-remembered nursery rhyme twisted into something broken. I rounded the corner. There, hanging from a valve handle, was the next green chemlight. And sitting on the floor directly beneath it, blocking the narrow tunnel, was an old, upright piano. Dusty, scratched, keys yellowed with age. Where the hell did a piano come from? The music was coming from it. But there was no one playing. The keys weren't moving. The sound just emanated from the instrument itself, sour notes, hanging in the air. I stopped dead. My path was blocked. Sterling! There's a piano here! Blocking the tunnel. Under the marker. The music's coming from it, but no one's playing. Is there space to pass? Her voice was sharp. I peered past the hulking instrument. Maybe. If I squeezed against the damp concrete wall, I could just get by. But I'd have to brush right up against the piano. The source of the wrong music. Barely, I reported, my voice tight. Proceed, she ordered. Do not touch the object if avoidable. Maintain forward momentum. Do not stop. Right. Okay. Squeeze past the haunted, self-playing piano in the creepy basement tunnel. Just another Tuesday night at Northgate Mall. I took a breath, flattened myself against the wall, and started shuffling sideways past the instrument. The discordant music seemed to swell, filling my ears, vibrating through the concrete under my feet. The air grew colder. I could smell damp wood and something else. Formaldehyde? I was halfway past it, pressed tight against the cold wall, when one of the piano keys, right at eye level, depressed slowly. All by itself. It let out a single, discordant clunk that was horribly loud in the silence. I flinched, scrambling the rest of the way past, stumbling forward into the tunnel beyond. I didn't look back. The piano music continued behind me, perhaps a little faster now, a little more insistent. Anomaly encountered and bypassed. I gasped into the radio, my heart racing. Acknowledged. Proceed. Sterling replied, her voice unchanging. I hurried on, following 2 more green markers through twisting corridors that seemed deliberately designed to disorient. The piano music faded behind me, replaced once again by the tense silence. Finally, I saw it, a heavy steel door at the end of the tunnel, another green chem light resting on the floor in front of it. Reached a steel door. Green marker, I reported. Stand by, Sterling ordered. A moment later, there was a loud clunk and a hiss, and the door swung open inwards, revealing a brightly lit, clean, almost clinical-looking room. It was a stark contrast to the grimy decay of the rest of the mall. Standing just inside was Agent Sterling. She matched her voice, crisp, professional. Late 30s maybe, severe dark hair pulled back tight, wearing a dark, functional pantsuit that looked vaguely paramilitary. Her eyes were sharp, assessing me instantly. She wasn't armed, or at least, not visibly. Behind her, the room looked like some kind of mobile command center, folding tables with laptops, communication equipment humming softly. No windows. Mr. Davies, she said, her voice calm but brooking no argument. Inside. Quickly. I practically fell into the room, Sterling shutting and locking the heavy door behind me immediately. The sudden transition from dark, threatening decay to this clean, brightly lit space was dizzying. What happened? I asked, looking around. The breach? Pennington's? Sterling turned to face me, her expression unreadable. The situation at the West Wing anchor is being managed. Your role was to provide initial observation and adhere to emergency protocols, which you did. Your compliance likely prevented a wider propagation event. Propagation event. Managed. She spoke about it like a chemical spill, not like whatever the hell that thing at the door was. Managed? I repeated. That thing, it looked like it was coming out. Anomalous entity designated PN01 remains secured within the primary containment perimeter of the West Wing, Sterling stated flatly. Its attempt to breach secondary containment via the concourse access failed. PN01. Pennington's number 1? They had designations for them. Of course they did. But the light? The figures? The evacuation? PN01 exhibits periodic active phases, Sterling explained coolly, as if reciting from a manual. These can involve localized reality fluctuations, mimetic phenomena, and attempts to test containment boundaries. Your report indicated a potential precursor to a Class 3 manifestation event. Protocol Red was initiated as a precaution. The asset deployed was a specialized rapid response containment team. They have reinforced the primary seals and deployed countermeasures. Countermeasures. Seals. Class 3 manifestation event. My head was spinning. Dave was right. This was way bigger than just maintenance. So, it's over? I asked hopefully. Sterling's expression didn't change. The immediate alert is over. The situation is ongoing. Always ongoing, Mr. Davies. She gestured towards one of the laptops. Mr. Henderson updated your file. Given your performance under pressure and your exposure, your employment parameters have been revised. Revised? Am I fired? After tonight, I wasn't sure if that would be a bad thing. On the contrary, Sterling said, a faint, almost imperceptible hint of something that might have been irony touching her lips. You've been promoted. Provisional Field Operative, Level 1. Welcome to the Site Management Team for Provisional Site Northgate. Promoted? Field Operative? Site Management? Provisional Site Northgate? My job title just got a whole lot weirder, and infinitely more terrifying. I wasn't just the janitor checking the locks anymore. Apparently, I was now officially part of the cage. I don't understand, I stammered. What does that mean? What's site management? Sterling picked up a thin tablet from the table. It means your duties expand beyond basic systems upkeep, Mr. Davies. You'll receive further training, enhanced protocols, and limited access to tactical containment resources already staged within the facility. She tapped the tablet. It means you are now formally bound by Non-Disclosure Agreement 734 Alpha and the Site Northgate internal security mandates. Your previous employment contract is void. Bound. Not offered. Bound. The illusion of choice I thought I had when taking this job evaporated completely. The high pay wasn't just compensation, it was commitment money. What if I don't want to? I asked, my voice small. What if I just want to leave? Sterling looked up from the tablet, her eyes locking onto mine. Her gaze was unnervingly steady. Leaving is complicated, Mr. Davies. You possess sensitive operational knowledge regarding an active containment site. You've had direct interaction with multiple anomalous phenomena, including PN-01 and at least one mimic entity. Standard exit protocols for personnel with your level of exposure are extensive. She paused, letting the implication hang in the air. Continuing your employment under the new parameters is the simplest, safest path forward. For everyone. Safest. Simplest. The veiled threat was crystal clear. I knew too much. I'd seen too much. They couldn't just let me walk away. Whether I liked it or not, Northgate Mall wasn't just my workplace anymore. It was my assignment. Maybe my prison. So, I said, swallowing hard. What happens now? No, Sterling said, setting the tablet down. You get debriefed. Then you get some rest in the designated safe quarters here in the command post. Your next shift begins at 6 o'clock. There's a new section in your protocols, Section 5, Active Containment Support. You'll need to familiarize yourself with it immediately. She gave me a curt nod. Mr. Henderson will be handling your direct supervision remotely for now. He's stable, but requires medical observation following tonight's events. Henderson? What happened to Henderson? Was he hurt? During the breach? Mr. Henderson experienced what we term cognitive resonance feedback while interfacing with the containment system during the PN-01 activity spike, Sterling said dismissively. A known occupational hazard when dealing directly with high-level reality anchors like Pennington's. He'll be fine. Cognitive resonance feedback. Sounded unpleasant. And a reality anchor? Pennington's wasn't just a haunted store. It was somehow holding reality together, or keeping something else out. The scale of this whole thing felt impossibly large, terrifyingly abstract. Sterling gestured towards another door off the main command room. Designated quarters are through there. Basic amenities. Get some sleep, Mr. Davies. 6 o'clock comes quickly. I walked towards the door like a zombie, my mind numb. Promoted. Field operative. Active containment support. It all felt unreal. I paused at the doorway, looking back at Sterling, who was already focused on one of the humming consoles. Agent Sterling? Yes, Mr. Davies? She didn't look up. That thing in Pennington's. PN-01. What is it? She finally looked up, her expression completely neutral. That information is classified above your current clearance level, Operative Davies. Focus on your duties. Follow the protocols. That's how you stay safe here. Safe. Right. I stepped through the door into a small, Spartan room, bunk bed, Metal locker, tiny sink. The door clicked shut behind me, plunging me into silence again. But this silence was different. It wasn't the watchful silence of the mall. It was the sterile silence of a cell. I sat on the edge of the thin mattress, the reality crashing down. I wasn't going home. Maybe ever. My job wasn't just weird. It was part of a secret war against things that shouldn't exist, fought in the decaying husk of a forgotten shopping mall. The mannequins, the crying girl, the piano, the thing in Pennington's, they weren't random hauntings. They were anomalies. Contained, mostly. And my job, my new job, was to help keep them that way. The promotion wasn't a reward. It was a leash, pulling me deeper into the darkness that lurked behind the boarded-up storefronts and flickering lights of Northgate Mall. Sleep? Yeah, right. Sleep felt like a million miles away. 6 o'clock was coming. And with it, the first day of the rest of my life, as guardian of a haunted, possibly interdimensional, prison. I picked up the new protocol binder left on the bunk. Section 5. Might as well start reading. My life depended on it now, more than ever.